Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. With the midterm elections behind us, we want to dive right into the latest on the Farm Bill today. We're joined by Amy Hagerman, our Extension Ag Policy Specialist. And Amy, it's been quite a week.
It has been. The midterm elections were always a big milestone for us in terms of Farm Bill discussions. And so we've been watching these midterms very carefully to see if we would have a change in control in the House leadership. And we did, in fact, have that move over so that Democrats will be the majority in the House of Representatives now. The Senate is still maintained with the Republicans as the majority there. And so this is going to create a very different dynamic for us in terms of Farm Bill discussions. There hasn't been a democratically controlled House since 2010. And even in the last Farm Bill election, we did have this split where we had a different majority in the Senate and the House. So it could be interesting as we go forward in these discussions.
No doubt that it will be, but what do we kind of need to think about between now and the end of the year or into early next year? What kind of things are you hearing, seeing, and talking with some of your peers and colleagues about?
Yeah, so a lot of the question is, would we continue with the Farm Bill that is already under discussion in the Reconciliation Committee, or would some sort of new Farm Bill be discussed? The four primary movers in the Senate and the House Ag Committees have all continued to state their support of having a Farm Bill in 2018. And this is really good news for our farmers here in the country. We've also had several farm groups that have come back in response to this election and continued to urge those members to move forward with a Farm Bill. So we still have quite a few steps to get to a Farm Bill. But historically, once a bill has come out of conference, it could move pretty fast through those last steps.
So as we wait for all of that, what kind of advice are you giving to Oklahoma producers in the meantime? What kind of things do they need to be aware of?
Yeah, and it's really important to recognize that although we are under a Farm Bill that has expired now, the 2014 Farm Bill, and we're waiting for the 2018 Farm Bill, we still have deadlines coming up. There are still activities happening, so don't lose sight of those deadlines and miss out on those opportunities. We have the EQIP program signups that are happening on November 15th. We also have the signups for the livestock forage program that happened on November 15th, and you have to have your pasture acreage reports in for that. And don't forget seed cotton by December 7th. So as long as people are continuing to keep their eye on those deadlines, I think that they'll be in good shape, and then we just have to wait for the new Farm Bill to arrive.
Okay, great perspective, and no doubt we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Amy.
We're here at the OKC West Sale Barn in El Reno, and Derrell, this is one of the busiest times of year for cattle auctions, isn't it?
It really is. You know, we normally have a big fall run. I expect that we'll see our biggest numbers on a weekly basis in Oklahoma either this week or next week, but it's a big time of the year for us.
Now, usually this time of year is the lowest you're going to get for cattle prices. Is it true this year?
Well, it's been a little bit different this year. You know, the seasonal run usually pushes prices to a seasonal low in late October, early November. Because we've got lots of wheat pasture coming on, there's been lots of demand for stocker cattle, and we've actually held these prices pretty close to, you know, sort of level. It's been a little bit volatile up and down, but not as much seasonal pressure as we might see some years.
And around this time of year is when our OQBN sales are going on. How are those going so far?
Well, you know, we're actually here today for the second one of those sales. We had the first one a week or so ago. We've got several more to go, so it's a good time of the year. We've had some challenges with weather and wet, sloppy conditions, so animal health is at a premium right now, and these OQBN calves are you know, good calves to look at to minimize some of those health problems.
You were mentioning challenges. Wheat pastures had some challenges. What's going on in that area?
You know, most years in Oklahoma this time of the year, we're getting some wheat pasture. We're not quite sure how much we're going to have, so we're worried about overstocking it. This year we've had so much moisture. We've got lots of wheat pasture coming. It's been too wet to turn out on, so we're waiting for the fields to dry up a little bit. I suspect in the next week and week to 2 weeks, we'll see a lot of cattle turned out on wheat. And so that's why there's still lots of demand for these stocker cattle this year.
All righty, thanks, Derrell. Now here's our Extension Ag economist Kellie Raper with some more details about the OQB and cattle sales.
So today, this is our second OQBN sale of this season. We're here at OKC West, but there'll be a good run of calves today. The numbers have been very good. We actually saw a drop during the drought period, as you would expect, but we are back up to peak numbers. I believe last year we were at the highest numbers that we had seen. So the last 2 years have been up around that 10,000 mark in terms of number of calves coming through the program. And given the way that prices are holding this season, I suspect that we will see good premiums for those calves because of the health management practices that have been implemented with those calves. I think buyers are going to be very interested in them to kind of get around some of the health issues that we might have otherwise.
For a lot of years, we just sold our calves right off the cows at the local sale barns, and a couple of years I wasn't really satisfied with the way that went. I was looking for a new direction, and so we started weaning our calves and giving the health protocol on them, and it's worked out better for us. We're a small outfit, but we try to keep our quality up, and anything that we can do to get a premium for that quality, for the work that we do, then that's what and this has been a great program for us.
We collect data at the OQBN sales so we can get a good comparison of how these calves perform in terms of price relative to other calves that have not had those preconditioning practices applied. And our data from the past and data so far this year indicates that there are solid premiums for those practices. And so there's opportunity for buyers to get quality calves. There's opportunity for sellers to be paid for the practices that they're implementing on the ranch.
A lot of them liked our calves because of the health protocol that we do and the quality of them. And last year I was watching the sale on the internet, and the auctioneer commented about my genetics and on our cattle and everything.
So for this sale season, we've got 8 sales scheduled. The first was last week in Woodward. We'll have another one in Woodward later in this season, but we've got 8 total. We've got McAllister and Blackwell, a couple at Woodward, a couple here at OKC West. We do one in conjunction with Noble Research Institute as well.
It's a great program. I highly recommend it. It's been really good to us in our small operation, and I'm just well pleased, and that's the reason I keep coming back year after year.
We're just a few weeks away from the start of the breeding season for those herds here in Oklahoma that have fall calving herds. That means we've just got a little bit of time to make sure that the bull battery that we're going to use in that breeding season is ready to go. I think it's important that we have breeding soundness exams done on those bulls that we're going to turn out with the cows here at Thanksgiving or around the 1st of December. This gives us time that if any of those bulls fails that breeding soundness exam, that we can go to one of the local production sales and purchase a replacement bull to take the place of that one that failed the breeding soundness exam. One of the key questions that we always get is, how many bulls do I need for X number of cows? There's always been a kind of a standard rule of thumb that people use is 1 bull to 25 cows, and that's okay if we've got an adult bull, one that's at least 2 years of age or older, that we know something about, as we turn him into the cow herd in this upcoming breeding season. But if we're using something like one of these yearling bulls, one that was born last fall, then I think the rule of thumb that we are going to need for that young bull is the same number of cows matching his age in months. So if he's only 12, 13, 14 months of age, that's the maximum number of cows that I'd want to mate to that young bull. If we've got a spring-born calf, one that's now going to be close to 18 months of age, then that's a pretty good rule of thumb for that young bull that's 1.5 years in age. And then, like we said, once we get up to those that are going to be 24 months of age or older, then we can get back up to that 24, 25 cows per bull. Certainly there are bulls that we've used in the past and we know how good of a job that they do. They pass a breeding soundness exam, then maybe we can stretch that out just a little bit to 30 to 35 cows per bull. but only if we have some past history on that particular individual. I hope that gives you some idea as the preparation that we need to take care of so that the bull battery that we're going to use this fall will do the job, so we get a high percentage of those cows bred early in the breeding season and therefore a high percentage calf crop coming next fall. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Welcome to your weekly Mesonet weather report. About a month ago, I visited with you on SUNUP about drying conditions for Oklahoma farms and ranches. Today, the same issue continues to be the most prevalent problem facing agriculture. It has been hard lately to string together a couple of weeks of drying conditions without additional rainfall. This map from November 6th shows just how many days it has been since receiving 1/10 of an inch of rain. The northwest quarter of the state might be able to perform field work, but in the rest of the state it is probably still too wet. One of the biggest factors contributing to drying conditions is sunlight. If you think sunlight has been lacking lately, you would be correct. The departure of sunlight from normal in September shows just how cloudy it has been. The average sunlight was reduced across the entire state by as much as 30% in central regions. Things did not get much better in October, where again we see the sun's rays were blocked statewide by as much as 27% in Stevens County. The state's first hard freeze, cooler temperatures, and additional chances of rain make delays in finishing cotton and soybean harvest inevitable. Now here's Gary with more information on the state's weather conditions.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning, everyone. Well, we don't see any big changes this week on the U.S. Drought Monitor map, so I'm going to skip right past that, and I'm going to show you some rainfall maps from the Mesonet since the beginning of the water year on October 1st. The dark green colors and the nice numbers across much of the state show we're really in no way compared to last year, at least as far as the danger of drought developing. So across western Oklahoma, down into south central and into southeastern, and even up into north central Oklahoma, we have wide-ranging values from 6 to more than 10 inches. And then we go to the departure from normal rainfall map. Those good dark blue and dark green colors show those areas where we're above normal and actually much above normal. The only area of note with the deficits would be across the eastern portions of Oklahoma City metro area, up into the northeastern portions of the state, into the Tulsa area. Those are the areas that haven't received the good rains, and those are also the areas where the drought and the dry conditions still exist. So those areas need rain, but again, compared to last year, doing pretty good. Now let's go on to the USDA's maps for pasture and rangeland conditions and also topsoil conditions. We see Oklahoma with 61% in the good or very good condition for pasture and rangeland. That's pretty normal for the region, at least compared to Kansas, Texas, and Arkansas. Much better than our neighbors to the west and also Missouri, where drought conditions are still a little bit worse than ours. Now for the extent of topsoil that's rated in either the short or very short moisture, we see Oklahoma the best in the region with only 1%. We're looking pretty good in moisture and the pasture and rangeland conditions and also the soil moisture. The one area we need to improve would be rainfall up in northeast Oklahoma. Start to tamper down a little bit on that last remaining bit of drought and dry conditions. Hopefully we can see a little bit of that this week and make some changes next week. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
When making nutrient recommendations for immobile nutrients such as phosphorus and potassium, there are three general approaches for where we get the rates from. First is the sufficiency approach. The sufficiency approach, I like to say, is we are fertilizing the plant. It is only based upon the soil test and not based upon yield. Maintenance approach is an approach that is used in higher yielding environments where whatever has been removed from the previous crop is replaced. We're maintaining the soil levels. I call this fertilizing the soil. Buildup is an approach that has been taken especially when fertilizer prices are low. We apply so much fertilizer to the soil that we slowly increase those soil test levels up to a point which is 100% sufficient. Now, in most scenarios, I don't recommend the buildup. Maintenance, however, just for example, if we're looking at wheat, a 40 bushel wheat crop removes 20 pounds. An 80 bushel wheat crop is going to remove 40 pounds of phosphorus, and 120 for the high yielded irrigated locations, you're removing 60. Now, if we use the normal Oklahoma starter, a lot of producers in Oklahoma are going to put anywhere between 50 and 75 pounds of 1846O into their drills with the seed. They're actually applying 34 pounds. So if you put on that starter and you're growing a 40 bushel crop, you're applying more than that crop's removing, and you will build your soil test. However, if you're able to grow an 80 bushel crop, you're going to remove slightly more than you apply, and potentially over time that soil test goes down. We don't typically see decreasing soil test, however, in a wheat system. Where we get decreasing soil test is when we start bringing in corn and soybean. So if we look at a corn crop, a 100 bushel corn crop is going to remove 38 bushel. And we start getting it into the good irrigated corns and good dryland corn. If you think 100 bushel corn, a 200 bushel corn crop is going to remove 76 pounds. That's a lot of phosphorus. Up in the Great Plains on the irrigated corn in the Panhandle where they're growing 240, 250, you're removing very close to, not quite, almost 100 pounds of phosphorus. You remove 100 pounds every year consistently over time, you will deplete the soil system. On soybean, our K levels, if you're growing a 30 bushel soybean crop, so 30 BPA, you're going to remove approximately 24 pounds, and a 60 bushel crop removes 48 pounds of phosphorus. So I go back on this critical level. I talked to a producer and said, okay, Brian, do I run sufficiency or maintenance? It's all about your yields. Are you at a yield level where you're annually removing more than you put on based upon sufficiency? Then we need to start considering replacement. And those are those locations that have a corn, soybean, wheat rotation with consistently high yields. If you're in a continuous wheat rotation or continuous wheat system, more than likely, the sufficiency recommendation is always going to be your best bet because it's going to get you the biggest bang for your buck. For more information about sufficiency versus buildup and maintenance, check out the SUNUP website at sunup.okstate.edu.
Well, the WASDE came out back on Thursday, and Kim, was there any earth-shaking news in the WASDE report?
I don't think there was any earth-shaking news. There was some news. You look at the world on wheat, Australia, Ukraine, Pakistan, all lower production, exporting countries. So we've talked about that in the past. No change in Russian wheat production. We'd like to see that go down, but you know, we'll take steady. However, there was increased production in other minor countries, which had a total increase in world production and slightly higher world ending stocks. That's not good news. Essentially, no change in the U.S. wheat, slightly lower exports, but for the most part, just not much change in the U.S. You look at corn in the U.S., they lowered corn production and ending stocks. Lowered that from 1.8 billion to 1.74 billion bushels. Soybeans, just more bad news for that. They did lower the yields just a little bit, but they also lowered exports, and they increased soybean ending stocks from 885 million bushels to 955 million. So if you had to grade it, you'd say marginally negative news for essentially all markets.
Now back to wheat. We really haven't seen much movement in the price of wheat here lately. Is that seasonal or what's playing into that?
Well, it's just the weak export markets. We've talked about it. We just don't have the export demand that we've had in the past. You go back to mid-August, September. Since that time range, we've lost $1.15 on the board. We lost another 15 cents on the basis. You look at that KC December contract, it's wallering around between 485 and 510, and just not much movement there. And you know, that slightly lower 15 cent basis, I think that's not good news, but it's getting back to to where we had expected to be. You can look at forward contracting wheat for 19 delivery. The basis is about a minus 40 cents, and you're looking around $5 and a nickel for that.
One of the other commodities that's kind of been close to, well, moves with wheat in the past has been corn. Where are we with corn?
Well, I think corn and wheat, they may be moving together a little bit, but mostly I believe they're divorced right now. You look at corn on that futures contract, it's been trading between 343, 375, low, relatively low there. You look at the support at 340, so if it goes below that, it'll go down. Resistance at 385. It's just wandering around. They did lower the harvest just a little bit, and I think that's positive, and so we could see that coming out.
Earlier you talked about the lower expectations for soybeans. What's that do for prices?
Well, I mean, they're just not good news for soybeans, and soybean prices have been moving sideways. I'll think about all the negative news. We did get some news this week that China may be able to back off imports for Brazil to get their second crop in there, and that would be even less demand. USDA is talking about the export demand for U.S. beans, rather than being like China normally buys up front. China's not buying, but other countries are, so it's going to be spread throughout the years, which means our prices are just going to waller around and maybe start inching them way up, but just not much news in the soybean market.
Okay, thank you much. Kim Anderson, Grain Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
As we move into the winter months and start thinking about fireplaces and wood stoves, we wanted to learn more about the types of wood that you see in Oklahoma. From Salim Hiziroglu, the university's wood products specialist.
So we are simply dealing with the density of the wood. Higher density species is going to last longer period of time when you burn it. However, the low density species, as I said, softwood species will burn easily. Species wise, the black locust or the Osage orange, they are pretty hard, tough material when you put in your fireplace in the dry condition. I mean, when I say dry, not real wet, it's gonna last long time, and you will be able to create quite a bit heating value. Cottonwood, it is hardwood species, but it is not physically hard. So when we say softwood, we are simply talking about the evergreen species. But if you burn a piece of eastern red cedar or the softwood such as the pine, it's not going to last long period of time. So you have to feed your fireplace or wherever you are burning all the time. Of course, also the smoke is the problem. In eastern red cedar, we have some oil in the wood. Oil is going to make, the different aroma, different incense, in a way that the smoke is going to be different than other species. In any case, no matter what kind of wood you are burning, you will simply, leave some residual material in the chimney. It could be slightly higher in the case of the softwood, such as eastern red cedar or the pine, because of the resin content, because of extractive content in the wood. But I don't believe it is a significant issue in terms of the real damaging the chimney or in long run. If you burn real long period of time, no matter what type of wood you are burning, and if you do not maintain your chimney, possibly you may have some kind of problem there, sure. When you harvest a tree, let's say there's a tree here, either softwood or hardwood, when you harvest it, that tree could have, depending on the time of the year you harvest it, could have 40, 50, 60% moisture content. What I would suggest when you cut the firewood, put in a kind of shed, try to protect from the rain. For typical firewood, 20-25% moisture content should be sufficient. 6 months is plenty of time. Again, if you have a real large chunk of oak, it may take maybe longer time, but softwood is gonna dry, low density wood is going to dry much faster than hardwood, depending on the size, depending on the season. But yeah, it's just, common sense, 6 months should be plenty of time to dry wood.
Sometimes people will use the terms milk allergies or lactose intolerance interchangeably. And while they're similar, it's important to remember that they're actually very different. They both fall under the category of what's known as food sensitivities. This means that there are specific individuals that will suffer some type of adverse health consequence from consuming foods that contain either milk or some milk component. However, they're different in two important ways. The first is what causes the adverse response. For a person that's allergic to milk, it's the protein that causes the reaction, and it doesn't take much to cause severe illness or even death. However, for someone that is lactose intolerant, it's the lactose, or in other words, the sugar, that's responsible for the adverse response. Typical symptoms for lactose intolerance include severe gastrointestinal distress. An allergic reaction to milk occurs when there's an immunological response to the milk protein in the body of the person that suffers from the milk allergy. This can occur from consuming milk directly or consuming foods that contain milk-derived proteins. Lactose intolerance is an inability to digest the lactose in milk. So by being aware of how milk allergies and lactose intolerance are similar and different, hopefully we can help keep people who suffer from these conditions safe. For more information, go to fapc.biz or sunup.okstate.edu.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime at sunup.okstate.edu and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.